So we'll just wait a few minutes and let other people join, and then we'll get started.
Wonderful. You doing good today?
Yeah, we're getting another 6 inches here in Massachusetts. So
oh my goodness.
It just keeps, the hits just keep on coming. Do some quick introductions at the beginning, and then we'll get going here in about 2 minutes.
Yeah, it's nice and toasty here. 75 degrees yesterday.
Boy, that's perfect.
It is, but for February.
You want a little cooler?
Oh, yes. It reminds me of summer too much.
I'm sorry, 75 and 110. That's a little bit, I don't know that 75
much.
is summer.
Oh, that's true. So spring.
Yeah, we just keep getting these quick storms that, we had 4 inches 2 days ago, and, of course, the one where we got 19 and a half.
Oh, my word.
What was that, a week ago? So you just, you start to run out of places to put this stuff. You got these big snow banks in your, in your driveway.
Oh, that's funny.
Just run out of places to put it. I mean, it looks gorgeous. I look outside my window right now. The snow's coming down. It looks incredible. Then you got to clean it up.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm okay with the heat because I don't have to shovel it. That's what I have to tell people.
That's true. That's true. You can always go and find an air conditioner.
Well, it's difficult to dress for the heat. I mean, that's the one advantage of cold.
That's a good point. Yep. Well, we're about a minute away, so we'll give everybody just another minute or so, and then we'll get started. Well, let's jump into this. I want to welcome everybody who's on the Zoom webinar with us. My name is Jim Wentworth, as you can see from the screen. I'm one of the co-founders of the Emerge Leadership Group. You may have heard me talking. I'm out of the Boston area where we're getting another 4 to 6 inches of snow today, and I'm joined by quite the opposite. My fellow co-founder of the Emerge Leadership Group, Sheldon Lohr. Hi, Sheldon.
Hey, Jim. It's good to be here. Hi, everybody.
And Sheldon's in Phoenix, Arizona, where he's not getting 4 to 6 inches of snow today.
It's sunny and warm.
Yeah, getting the opportunity to go outside. But we've packed in quite a bit of information in this 30 minutes. So I want to sort of jump into things. We founded the Emerge Leadership Group over 20 years ago, really focusing on the transition from the individual contributor role to the first line leader role. We've subsequently done a lot of work with leaders of leaders, and with this particular program that we're going to be overviewing today, this is really designed for those experienced first-line leaders. They've transitioned into the new role, or they're still struggling with the transition into this first-line leader, this leader of others role, or they've been in the role for maybe 10, 15, 20 years and want to understand, how do I continue to increase my effectiveness in my role as a first-line leader? And that's really what this research-based program was designed for. that group. We've rolled it out a few times with organizations, with their existing leaders. The content fits perfectly with some of the challenges that these first line leaders are facing. So we're excited to share some data with you. We're going to share a model around leadership expectations with you that you may find interesting, and then Sheldon's going to talk through at a high level the workshop content and the workshop experience. And then if you have more, if you want more information, we can certainly schedule some time after this webinar. But, we wanted to get through this in 30 minutes for you, be respectful of everybody's time. So I want to just start, and Sheldon, feel free to jump in at any time. I'm going to start with some of the management promotions data that we find pretty intriguing, and that is, Gallup found that 84% of management promotions fail to pan out. There's additional data. Climate's got data, 60% failure within 18 months. I mean, that takes a toll on organizations. When we take high-performing individual contributors, we promote them to this first-line leader role, and they fail to meet the expectations of the role, and it leads to ultimately not only in some cases their turnover, but you start to lose the direct reports of these first line leaders. Some of these high contributing individual contributors tend to leave the organization, and what we find is that most people say, look, I'm leaving because I got a better opportunity or I have more money. And when you really dig deep into the reason they're leaving because of their manager. Individuals tend to quit their boss rather than quit their organization. So, if you look at some of the data, and you can read it here, I mean, the cost of turnover is upwards of 1.5 to 2 times an employee's salary. And if you look at some of the data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, in a 1,000 employee company, that could be as high as $18, $19, $20 million a year in turnover costs, because we didn't do an appropriate job of helping these people to become effective in their leadership role. And we've done a lot of research over the last 20 years with first-line leaders and leaders of leaders, and have found that if you have a transitioned effective leader in their role, meeting their performance and impact and contribution expectations, their impact to the organization is on average $108,000 per year per manager. That adds up really quickly. And in some cases, we saw that close to 7 figures for some leaders in some pharmaceutical firms that we did research with. So, this data really drives home the point that we really need to help not only new leaders, but existing leaders understand the changing role expectations. And that's really what our stages of impact model, this research-based model, really drives home, is the changing expectations that happen for leaders over time. Now, this model is based upon, and Sheldon, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's almost 50 years worth of ongoing research around the expectations for leaders. And you can see there are 2 axes here. One is around the contribution that you make. You'll notice it's different than performance. We're not necessarily dealing with performance, although that's certainly a factor in what we're talking about. But it's really about what impact you have on the team, the other individuals, and the organization as a whole. What impact do you have on the organization? And then what approach are you taking? Is it more tactical in nature in terms of the work that you do and the approach that you take, or is it much more strategic? And as you can see, over time, the expectation is you're going to take a much more strategic approach to the work, and over time, you're going to impact the organization more rather than just make an individual contribution. So let me just walk through these quickly, and Sheldon, jump in when you want, because I got to tell you right now, we can probably do an hour on this on this one slide. So I do want to move through it.
the only thing I would just add, Jim, I don't think that you mentioned it, that this is well, what we like to call title agnostic. So it's not tied to title, even though expectations are certainly tied to title. You'll see here as we walk through that, you know, an individual contributor can step up and take a more broad strategic approach. And on the opposite, you can have a first line leader take a very narrow tactical approach and make a very self-oriented contribution. So just to keep that in mind.
Yeah, which is what Gallup found with, you know, with some of their data, and those people who couldn't meet the expectations of their promotion. But let's just walk through this quickly. So you have folks who are taking a stage 1 approach to the work. These are typically people who are brand new to a career, just out of college or university, or brand new to a role. And the contribution expectation for somebody who's taking a stage 1 approach and mindset to the work is learn how things work around here, learn the people, learn the processes, learn how the organization works, learn the expectations, and get up to speed and start producing as quickly as possible. Now, the fact is, most people make the transition from the stage 1 approach, leading self, or, you know, the stage 1 understanding and establishing capability, to stage 2, which is leading self, without a lot of difficulty. It takes typically around 6 to 9 months for somebody to effectively transition to this leading self role. And that's the stage 2 approach to the work. Leading self is really about developing a deep level of expertise in your particular functional area, whether it's IT, finance, HR, sales. You're developing a deep level of expertise in that functional area, and you're developing a lot of credibility with the people that you work with, that you can get the work done without significant dependence upon your manager. And by the way, this is a really fun place to be, because you're utilizing typically the education and experience you learned leading into the organization and in stage 1, and you're starting to produce great individual results. But the contribution you make is the work that you do individually. Over time, and it's typically around 3 to 5 years in one's career, there's an expectation that you start to contribute differently to the organization. You start to pick your head up out of the work and start to think strategically across the organization. How does my work now impact this team, overall the team results, but how does it impact other departments in the organization as well? You start to develop broader relationships, where in stage 2, leading self, you're developing relationships with people that you have a lot of functional things in common with. You can talk the same language. When you start to make that transition to stage 3, you start to develop broad relationships across the organization and much higher in the organization that you can leverage for coaching, for resources, for sponsorship of initiatives. So that's the difficult transition that people make. And we've done 20 years worth of work with individuals who are transitioning to that first line leader role. The next step in a leadership career is really around the transition to leading first line leaders. And you'll notice we called that advanced stage 3 based upon the research. And because here's the interesting point. When you're making the transition from a stage 2 approach to a stage 3 approach, leading self to leading others, it's really about letting go of the need to be the expert. You're starting to let go of your individual contributor mindset and approach, and you're starting to think more broadly. The transition from the stage 3 approach to an advanced stage 3 approach is not necessarily about letting go. You still need to demonstrate that same type of behavior that you demonstrated as a leader of others. You're just developing new, higher complex behaviors around things like allocating, deploying, and redeploying resources throughout your team. You're managing boundaries and breaking down silos across the higher levels of the organization so you can increase the flow of information across the organization and benefit your team. You're selecting and developing the future leadership of this organization. And you're starting to foster this strategic mindset in your downline. So you're, again, developing the future leadership of this organization. But you're still responsible for making sense of work for people, organizing and delegating, coaching and developing, all the things that made you successful as a first-line leader, a leader of others. You're just building upon those and becoming much more strategic. And then finally, there's a small percentage that actually make the final transition to stage 4. We call it leading globally. It's not necessarily a geographical term. It's more about you're leading a broad business, a big business unit in an organization, or you're leading the entire organization at the C-level, and your focus is more around where are we going as an organization. Your time perspective is 5 to 10 to 15 years out. You talk to folks in other organizations, you talk to folks in the investment community, so you're representing the organization at more of this high-level executive level with leading globally. So if you think about it with the stages, and then Sheldon, I'll open it up to you. In a typical high-performing organization, you'll have about 3 to 5% of the population taking a stage 4 approach. If you combine stage 3 and advanced stage 3, it's about 25% of the organization should be taking really that type of leadership approach, a leading others, a leading leaders approach. Around 55 to 60% will be taking a stage 2 approach. This is the group that's getting the day-to-day tactical work done. And around 15% are newbies to the organization. They're bringing in new ideas, new blood, new energy to the organization. What we found is that with low-performing organizations, it's the stage 3 and advanced stage 3 levels. When they drop below 20% and get to around 15 to 17% of the population is when organizations start to have significant performance problems, and they end up not hitting their goals, and in some cases they end up either losing money or eventually going out of business. So it's really that level that we're addressing with this particular program, is those first-line leaders who aren't meeting expectations and are still struggling in understanding how to become more effective in their role. Sheldon, additional thoughts?
Yeah, just real quickly. You know, if you think about that 25% rule, that's going to suggest that we have some individual contributors in that mix as well. And that's really an important element. And that's something that we actually work on and cover in this program that I'll run through with you here in a moment. So that's just something to kind of keep in mind. And the other thing, and Jim, I can't remember if you mentioned this, and it somewhat goes without saying, but that the leading self to leading others, that stage 2 to stage 3 transition, by far is the most difficult transition most people will make in their careers. And for those who are successful, it takes 3+ years, 3 to 5 years to do it, unless they get some significant help. So it's very difficult.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point, is without significant help, it takes people a long, if they ever get there.
That's right.
And some just never get there, and they end up either leaving the organization, or worse, they stay and they hide.
Yeah, exactly.
So let me share some data around the stages that may be interesting for folks. These are contribution rankings. Again, they're not performance rankings. So if you think about taking 100 people and we rank them by, the greatest contribution, the people that make the greatest contribution to the organization, to the people that make the lowest impact and contribution to the organization, and then you look at what approach to the work do they take? So what stage, I don't like to say what stage are you in, because the stage is really about the approach. But where are you in terms of, the greatest impact to the organization versus the lowest? And then what is the stage approach that you typically take? You'll find that people who are taking a stage 1 approach are typically around the 17th percentile. We don't expect a lot out of these people, and the truth is we don't get it, but that's okay. We want these people to learn, understand how things work, and get up to speed. Stage 2s, on average, are around the 35th percentile. Don't forget, we have very high-performing individual contributors that are probably up here around the 70th, 80th percentile. They're making a significant contribution to the organization. Unfortunately, we also have people who are taking a stage 2 approach that are around the 5th and 7th percentile. So on average, they're around the 35th percentile. People who are in a manager role, and contrary to Gallup's data, the ones that actually make the transition and are effective in that role, their contribution rankings are significantly, they're high. They're at the 76th percentile in terms of the impact that they have to the organization. Again, we're talking about the transitioned leaders, those people who are effective in their role, and based upon what we're talking about today, the ones that continue to find ways to increase their effectiveness to the organization. For the leaders of leaders, for the ones that make that transition to that advanced stage 3 role, they're up around the 82nd percentile. And for stage 4 folks, on average, they're around the 92nd percentile. Now, we know we have some lower performing C-level executives too. I mean, but on average, they're around the 92nd percentile. The interesting thing is, if you have a manager, you take a high-performing individual contributor, you put them in a formal management role, and they don't meet the expectations of their role, their impact to the organization is slightly better than the folks who are taking a stage 1 approach to the work. So you could have a high-performing individual contributor around the 75th, 80th percentile in terms of their impact to the organization. You make them a manager, and they don't make the transition. They don't understand the changing expectations. They don't willingly change their approach to meet those expectations. They don't look for ways to increase their leadership effectiveness. This is what happens. Their contribution to the organization plummets. The flip side of that is, and Sheldon just talked about this, you have people in your organization. It's probably the greatest opportunity for organizations today and moving forward is this group right here. Is you have people in the organization that either don't want to be managers in their career or are just waiting to be managers in their career. If you as leaders can help them understand how to take more of a stage 3 strategic approach to the work and help develop that and coach them and provide feedback, their impact to the organization is just slightly less than the ones who are in formal management roles that make the transition. These people make a significant impact to the organization, but they typically do it in either a project lead or an informal leader or just in an individual contributor role. These people coach their colleagues, they find resources, they work through the politics of the organization to find resources to bring back to the team to get the work done more effectively on the team. These people are invaluable, and if we can grow more of these individuals, that's the greatest opportunity for organizations today. And that's what we talk to CEOs about, is certainly not only the development of their formal leaders, but this group right here. And if we get more managers looking to develop their direct reports in more of a stage 3 way, the contribution goes off the charts for organizations. So with that said, we put together, based upon our research and interviews with existing leaders about what they really struggle with, and put together this program, Increasing Your Leadership Effectiveness. Now, as you can understand, in today's environment, this is done in a virtual delivery through, what we're doing today, more of a Zoom interactive call. We have everybody, all the participants on the call. It's very interactive through the virtual, and we also have, for those states that are opening up a little bit, we also have the classroom delivery options as well. So Sheldon, if you would mind just giving I know we're getting closer to time here, just a high level overview of the workshop experience, and then if people are interested, we can do a much deeper dive offline on this workshop experience.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So, based upon what Jim has covered so far, I think a lot of this will make sense. So module 1, when we talk about the role of a leader, it's really around clarity, gaining clarity about those expectations, which are really stage 3 and tied to contribution and approach. So that's the focus, is to do some level setting, make sure they're clear on that. And one of the interesting things that we've really tried to do, we've done this with other programs, but this one we're putting a particular emphasis on the fact that that real learning happens within the work. And so this will be built around a leadership opportunity or an assignment or a project of some sort. Many of these folks are busy and overwhelmed as they are. So in that case, it would be their existing work. We would just build all the learning that happens in this workshop, this learning experience, focused on that their work and what they're involved in. So that makes it unique and makes it much more powerful. So as we move into the other modules, they're more skill-based, but they are all consistently focused on helping with this stage 3 approach and contribution. So as you look at driving business results through people, what we're really talking about there is trying to make sure that they incorporate clarity and alignment with a vision, mission, and strategic direction of the organization, particularly focused on that project or assignment that they're working on. Am I driving decision making down to the people who need to be making those decisions, where the information is? Am I facilitating team and individual agility? Trying to create a culture of innovation and risk taking along the way. And this is where I know we've talked about this a lot, but this is really where we begin to develop some of that stage 3 capability among the individual contributors on the team. And again, that's gold. I mean, that's you get so much out of that. The people are already on the payroll, so let's help develop them and give them some of that leadership capability as individual contributors. And what that does is it fills the leadership pipeline. I mean, for people that need to be promoted down the road, and for those that don't want to be promoted down the road, they're just better at what they do and impact others in a positive way in the process. Module 3 is around leadership time perspective. This is a bigger deal than a lot of people think. I mean, what's required of these individuals is to expand and broaden their time perspective. It's like Jim said with stage 4, those stage 4 people need to be looking out into the future. How are the decisions we make today going to impact us over the next 7 to 10 years? Well, these folks need to do something similar, maybe not that far out, but there is a tendency to be very narrow in their thinking and in their time perspective. So we want to encourage that to expand under the conditions which are rapidly changing, the volume of change and the importance that we be nimble and make changes on the fly is really important, but they have to keep that long-term perspective in mind. Module 4 is built around strategic delegation. This is probably some of the, a lot of the traditional ways of delegation, but here's what makes it unique. It's really built around that contribution and approach thing again. It's helping raise the level of the capability of the entire team in the process of this. So we're looking at strengths and weaknesses, capabilities of those on the team and matching those, but with that stages of impact mindset. And it's again directed at that project. Same with coaching. We've got a wonderful coaching model that many of you would be very excited about, I'm sure, but there are many of you, I'm sure, that have incorporated your own coaching model, and we would support that, of course. We wouldn't encourage you to eliminate that, but we would just incorporate the concept of contribution and approach and development in that way. And then module 6 is utilizing reciprocal relationships. If there's one thing that we found that lacks consistently with these first line managers is their strategic network is pretty weak. And so we spend a fair amount of time, again, focusing on the project. What relationships do they need to develop? What ones do they currently have, and how can they make them more reciprocal in nature? And that's where the great, I hate to use the word power, but the influence really comes in and makes them really powerful in terms of getting work done. So it's focused on that reciprocity. And then lastly, for the wrap up, we help them create an executable plan built around that and focused on that project. And how can we incorporate what we've learned today on that project to make it successful? And again, that's where they'll learn the most, is in actually doing. So that's kind of a high level overview of the experience.
Yeah, and thanks, Sheldon. And you know, one of the things that we did in the design of this program is make it very interactive and sort of skill building based in nature. And I did get a couple questions via chat. Do we use the breakout rooms during the virtual Zoom sessions? And we do. So we put smaller groups in the breakouts. We have them do a whiteboard as if we were in a classroom and doing a flip chart. So we have them do the whiteboard, and then we bring them back as a full group and share the whiteboard results with the group as we would do in a classroom environment with the flip charts. And again, it's done in, you know, we get multiple virtual sessions, because as you can see, there's a lot of workshop content here. And then, you know, it's a 2-day classroom delivery. So, you know, there are those options for the workshop. You know, one of the things that we can do is, you know, if you want to do a pilot of this program and take a look at it and test it out with a small group, you have that opportunity. We can also come on site and do a small group just to get a sense and get feedback from your folks. The other thing we could do, and I know this was a quick webinar, but the other thing we could do is schedule some time if you have a group on site at your organization that you think should see this and wants more information on it. We can do a much deeper dive into the content and in the workshop of the experience and talk to you about that as well. So with that, I want to be sensitive to the time. I did get a couple, there
was one quick comment that said you look younger than you sound, which really is offensive to me. I mean, it's that plastic surgery, Wentworth.
Well, thank you for that. Somebody said I have a good radio voice, and maybe I have a face for radio as well, and not Zoom. So I appreciate that. And I know I can see the comment now, and it's somebody that I've talked to for a while about a lot of different leadership training. So I appreciate that comment. One of the questions he had was, can internal trainers get certified to deliver? And absolutely, with all of our programs, the train the trainer option is there and available, and we encourage it because one of the things we found with the train the trainer, and I know Sheldon he actually did a virtual train the trainer just yesterday. And one of the things we find is when internal trainers deliver their programs, they can really tie it back to the current situations that are going on and current challenges that are going on in the organization. And as much as we spend time with organizations really trying to learn and get up to speed and understand those, there's nothing like having somebody who's living it day to day then deliver our content. So we are big proponents of that and highly support that. So look, Sheldon, I want to thank you for your time and expertise. I want to thank everybody for joining us. Again, we didn't want to get in the way of things going on during the day. We appreciate you spending 30 minutes with us. We'll do some follow-up and share some of this data with you. And if you're interested in learning more, we are very happy to spend some time talking in greater depth about it. But with that said, thanks everybody. Appreciate your time and look forward to talking with you.
Good week.
Take care.